What's up guys? In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to recharge your air conditioning system using the -30 high chill refrigerant. So basically this is the -30 refrigerant that I'm going to be installing into my system. The car previously had R134A in it, which was removed, and pretty much this is what you can get here in Australia, because it's impossible to buy R134A unless you've got a ARC refrigeration license. So the instructions are pretty clear, and I'll take you through how we're going to do this. The tools I'm going to be using are a set of gauges, also both a high and a low side connector for the car, a vacuum pump which I'll pull down so that there's no moisture in the system. I've got a leak checker, an electronic leak detector, so what I'll do after I've charged the system, I'll just make sure there's not any leaks anywhere. And I've also got a set of scales to weigh the bottle before and after, just to make sure that I'm putting the right amount in and I don't overcharge the system. And this is the gauges here. So on the left, the blue, that's the suction, the low side. And then on the right, we've got the high side, the liquid line. And pretty much all we have to do is attach the blue hose to the low side, the red hose to the high side, and then the yellow hose, that'll go to the vacuum pump. In order to find out which pipe is the low side and which is the high side, the low side is actually the bigger pipe of the two. So if you look down in here, you can see that this pipe here is around 20 mil, 3/4 of an inch, whereas the pipe on this side is only about 1/2 inch or 13 millimeters. So this is the high side and this is the low side. So the blue has to go on here and the red has to go on the other side. Quite simply, unscrew the cap, and then here we pull this back and then push it on, and then it'll turn round but it doesn't come off, okay? Pretty easy. And then we'll do the same on the high side. That's it on, okay? And now all we have to do is attach the hoses, which is just return it clockwise. And you don't really need to tighten this up too much, just hand tight, because there's a rubber O-ring in there, and if you over tighten them with shifting spanners or whatever, you can damage the actual gasket inside, okay? We put the red hose on the high side, on the liquid line. Okay, right. Prior to using your vacuum pump, just make sure that you change the oil, and make sure that the oil level is at the level there. Obviously this one here is a little bit low, so I'm just going to add some oil and then we'll get started. Now I'm going to install the vacuum and the charging hose, which is the yellow one, onto the vac pump. Pretty simple, just clockwise. Again, just hand tight, finger tight. So it's just a case of now turning these caps clockwise so it pierces the shredder. Same again on here, clockwise, and then that'll open all the system up. And then what we'll do is we'll switch on the vacuum pump, and then we'll go to the gauges. We'll just turn this anti-clockwise to open the valve up on the high side. And then the same on the low side. So it started at 0 PSI, 0 kPa, and as you can see there, it's now slowly pulling down into a vacuum on both sides. And at the moment it's around about minus 70, 80, around about minus 80 kPa or minus 25 PSI. And what we'll do is we'll just keep monitoring this, and I'll keep this on a vacuum, pulling from both sides for around about an hour. I know on these small systems you can usually pull a vacuum for about 30 minutes, but I just want to make sure all the moisture is out of the system before I add any refrigerant. Okay, so I'll come back to you. Right, now what we want to do is, I've had this on a vacuum for about 1 hour now, and what I want to do now is to shut off the high side valve, like so, and the low side valve. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch this for about 1 hour and make sure that this vacuum here, both sides, it doesn't move, doesn't go back towards zero. If that moves towards zero, it indicates that we've got a leak somewhere. And obviously we don't want that, so I'll come back to you in an hour. So at the moment it's round about 82 kPa, around about 25, minus 25 PSI. So let's see what it reads in an hour. And after 1 hour you can clearly see that it's held the vacuum. It's still sitting at minus 82 kPa, or around about 25 PSI there. Okay, so we're good. We can charge it now. Let's go. Right, the Mini Cooper R56 takes around 490 grams of R134A refrigerant, but the minus 30 high chill only requires 60% of that amount. So after doing a quick calculation, I've worked it out that we only need 298 grams of the minus 30. So I've got a set of scales here and it's sitting at 0.15. So all I do is I zero that, then I'll put on the bottle, and as you can see there, it works out roughly about 505 grams. So I'll add some refrigerant and then I'll measure the weight as we go. The other thing about this minus 30, when we're charging the system, we actually need to turn the bottle upside down, because there's a tube inside here that's sitting at the top. So if we were to charge the system like so, we would be charging it with vapour. Whereas if we turn it round, upside down, all the liquid goes down to the bottom of the bottle, and then we're charging it as a liquid, as obviously what the manufacturers require us to do. So I'm simply going to connect the vacuum charging hose onto the bottle, like so, and then I'm going to so that's now 560 with the hose attached. Okay, so I've got to roughly pull out about 300, 295 thereabouts. So I'll turn the bottle upside down, and I'll screw clockwise, and then I can hear the refrigerant going into the hose. What I need to do now is bleed off any air that's inside this pipe here, so that I'm not going to suck any non-condensables into the system. I'll just show you that again there. Okay, so I'll zero the scales. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some in through the high side first. And you can quite clearly see that we've now broke the vacuum and we're now in positive pressure. I do apologise guys, my microphone stopped working on me at this point. So what I'm doing here is I'm switching on the electronic leak detector, which bleeps every time the little LED flashes. And what I do is I pretty much just point the sniffing tube down to the compressor at the suction and discharge ports where the system was previously opened up. And if there is any refrigerant leaks there, the actual machine will bleep a lot faster and it will let me know that there's a leak there. And then obviously I'll need to fix the leak before I go any further and add more refrigerant to the system. But we have already pulled down a vacuum and it's held vacuum for 1 hour. This is just another preventative measure while the system's under pressure to make sure there isn't any small leaks. Right, so what I need to do now is I need to turn the bottle upside down so that I can charge this as a liquid, and then I'll need to keep putting it back on the scales until I've removed 300 grams, 290 grams from the canister, okay? And what I'll do is I'll just charge it in through the low side port as what it states here in the instructions. Now it's imperative that we don't overcharge the system, so we can just keep checking, keep going slowly, and seeing how much we've removed. Right, so that's 35 grams. $55. And that's around about 190. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to start the car and pull the rest through using the suction of the compressor. I've switched on the car and now I'm watching the gauge go down. That indicates the compressor's running. Right, so what I do now is I turn the bottle upside down, wait for the gauge to go down, the dial to go down on the gauge, which indicates the compressor's running, and then I turn the low side valve anti-clockwise, and that allows the refrigerant to feed through into the compressor and into the system. And then after that, I'll weigh the bottle again to make sure that I'm pulling out the correct amount into the system. Now it's just a case of getting inside the vehicle, switching on the air conditioning system, and then using an infrared thermometer. I check the air that's coming out of the vents and make sure I've got minimum 8 degrees Celsius there. And as you can see, it's dropping down all the way down to about 5 or 6 degrees. So I know now that the system is charged correctly, and also I've weighed the bottle and I've pulled out the 290 grams, so everything's good to go. Now what I want to do is I'm going to close off the high side here, remove that so that the shredder's opened back up and that's sealed. And what I'll do when I start the car is any liquid, any refrigerant that's inside this line here, I'll suck that back through the suction, through the gauges and through the suction, and then that way I'm not losing any refrigerant, okay? And for the suction side, it's just the exact same as the high side. You just unscrew the shredder and then just pull the valve off, and that's it. And then it's just a case of putting back on the caps on both the low side and the high side. And then if you've got some soapy water solution, just give the caps a spray and then make sure there's not any bubbles there. And that way you'll know that there's not any leaks coming from the shredder ports and the system is completely sealed. And that's it, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Take care.